This is chapter 6 in our course on elementary Greek. We're drawing again from Plummer and Merkel's textbook, and chapter 6 in that book takes us now to the imperfect tense. Okay, it calls for us to do a little bit of quick review on some of the details of how we worked with the imperfect tense, or just even how we understand tenses to begin with. So we talked previously about tense as including both time and aspect. Okay, time is when it happened, aspect is how it happened. And I should have included in here, there's a third option, of course, simple, linear, or completed are our three options for aspect, where time you can have present, past, or future. Okay, I put those into, if you remember, a matrix up above, and we talked about here the fact that I could do all of these, time, past, present, or future, aspect, simple, linear, or completed, and I could actually have a distinct form for all of those. Okay, but a Greek verb, or a Greek verb tense, I should say, will have picked a certain set of these. So if we're talking about the present tense is linear, and it's present. And that means then the present tense, all the present tense verbs that you learned in our previous lesson are going to be in this category. That's the quadrant that we use for the present tense. Okay, what we're learning now is the imperfect tense. The imperfect tense will be past time. It is also linear. And so the imperfect would be in this quadrant. And it will always be that way. The imperfect tense is always placed into that spot. Okay, so if I put that into this graph instead, the present tense was present time linear aspect. I translated that. Remember, if you want to do linear, then you do an ing. And so since I have an am present and an ing here, I can do I am eating cheese. Okay, present linear. The imperfect tense will keep the same linear aspect. And so I also have the ing here. The only difference between present and imperfect is past. So if I do my translations, I can actually compare these. Up here, I am eating cheese. Down here, I was eating cheese. It's just a matter of the time. When are these events happening? Okay, present, I am, past, I was. Either case, what will help you keep that linear aspect going, at least in English, keep that ing in there, the ongoing kind of focus or nature. Okay, to form the imperfect tense, it's kind of the grammar of the imperfect tense. Plummer gives a lot more detail, but to form the imperfect tense, you're going to need to know these charts. Okay, and these first two charts actually reappear quite a few more times. In fact, if it's any encouragement to you, these basic charts, oase, amaneta, usi, maisaitai, methasentai, you learned last time, that set will be used for two of the tenses, 2.5, I guess. And this set will be used for the rest of the tenses. So your core, like basic fundamental charts, you actually are learning or have learned a lot of them. By the end of this lesson, you'll have learned half of the noun charts, and you'll have learned all of the verb charts. And then it's a matter of plugging them in places. Okay, so brute force memory, it's this, and I mean, it continues going as we proceed, but you actually are pretty close to mastering most of the core charts that you need to know that you attach to other pieces in order to work this language out. Okay, for this one, then your endings in the active are going to be nu, sigma, blank, men, te, nu. Nu, sigma, blank, men, te, nu. A couple of explanations here. The blank is just because in this spot, there isn't an ending. It's blank. There's not an ending. You just use your stem. Also worth noting is that in these two spots, this and this are identical. Just recognize that. And if you ask a question like, well, then how am I going to tell them apart in a sentence? Just remind yourself that English wildly manages to use the same pronoun you for either the singular or the plural. That's bizarre. And yet we get on well enough. So there are ambiguities in languages, and there are places in our language where the same pronoun is used multiple ways. It's actually bizarre that we would do it this way, and yet somehow we get on, we make it work. Okay, so you'll have a handful of places, I'm happy to show you some, where the first person singular or the third person plural, your interpretation could go with one or the other. It's not a very common problem. Generally, they're the same, but it's not any kind of conflict. That's the imperfect active. Remember the active voice. Imperfect is tense. Active voice means I was eating the cheese. I actually did it. Whereas if we go over to the imperfect middle passive, you'll remember this is tense. Middle passive is voice. Passive, I was eaten, or I was being eaten, sorry, by the cheese. I've got my ing in there. I made it past, I was. Okay, and then to make a form of passive, generally you'll do something, in this case, a be, I was being eaten. You'll make it so that it's happening to the actor. And for those, the endings I'll memorize here are main sa ta, metha stha, in ta. Main sa ta, metha stha, in ta. You can recognize, I mean, if you just do let's just do a quick comparison to the ones that we did for middle passive, the other set of endings, we call those primary middle passive endings. If it was main over here, over there I had my. Well, I mean, I guess the first letter is the same. Psi, tai. Okay, so I mean, you can see a bit of similarity, mu, sigma, tau, matched here by mu, sigma, tau. You can see at least their derivative or their resonant somehow. Over there we learned mai, psi, tai, metha, stha, in tai. And the metha then is identical, and the stha is identical. Over here, I've replaced in ta with in tai. And actually, if you remember the mai, psi, tai over here, I mean, the pattern basically goes, we're replacing the alpha iota with an omicron. Okay, main, of course, is its own thing because, well, we can't be too consistent, can we? But in the case of psi, the psi, I, switch to sa, ah. The tai, the I, switch to ah, ta. And the ntai here, switch to ta, nta. Okay, so I've actually, once I put some of that together, what do I need to memorize here? I need to memorize main instead of my. And from there, I need to substitute all the I's over to ahs. And I've got my chart. I mean, on point of fact, then, this is a pretty good one for memory. When I memorized it, I still memorized it by brute force, meaning I walked around and said it a gazillion times. And I think that could be good. It's maybe a little faster. But if you're the kind of person, and brains, I understand brains are different, you the kind of person that would find it easier to derive that, and it's okay so long as you can do it fast. It was handy to me to have it, main, sa, ta, metha, stha, and ta, to be able to say it quickly. Okay, how we're going to put these together is that we're going to do the same kind of process here that we did before. I put my stem. Remember the way we find our stem? Our stem in this case, as before, is luo, and we use, that's that top left spot in the present tense. It's always like in the simplest or most basic or the first one you learned. So my omega right there, take that off. My stem is lu. Okay, so I'll just come down here and I'll take my stem, lu, plus connecting vowel. Remember how the connecting vowels work? If it's a mu or a nu, M-N-O, mu or a nu, use an omicron. And so I'm going to have an omicron here on, an omicron here on, here amen. I have an omicron here amen, ometha, on ta. Everything else will be eh. Es, eta, esa, eta, estha. It's always going to be epsilon in those others. Okay, so use your connecting vowel, stem plus connecting vowel, plus your ending. And if you memorize your endings above, then you have it. Okay, so it turns out to be relatively simple. One other thing I need to add to this is the topic of the augment. And the augment goes on the front of the verb. It's this epsilon. Okay, now in general, we'll see some complexities as we keep on going, but in general, the augment is relatively simple. Slap on an epsilon. Put an epsilon on the front, move forward. And here's something I would like you to memorize. You really want to know this and keep it, okay? The epsilon augment, that's what we're calling it an augment. The epsilon augment is a sign of the past time indicative. Okay, I would like you to memorize that. You can memorize it now. Alternatively, I'll just say it to you so often that it'll get into your brain and it'll annoy you. So I'll annoy it into your brain, or you can just memorize it. But the augment is a sign of the past time indicative, and that's actually really helpful when you're working with these. Watch for that augment. And the existence of the augment narrows the field right away. You, for instance, for our purposes right now, you can know that the verb is not present tense. It can't be present tense if it has an augment. If it has an augment, it has to be a past time indicative. That's what augments do. And you can see as you go down it now, I have the augments, 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 augments all the way. All of these verbs or all of these spots are starting off with the augment. The augment is a sign of the past time indicative, or said a little differently, it is a sign or a marker here of the imperfect. Now you can take a look at Plummer, and Plummer will talk with you in a little more detail about some of the distinct things that happen with augments. Augments, I said, slap on an epsilon, put it on the front of it. You'll have a handful of places where, let's say, the verb, well, I'll write some of these out, and you can see these in Plummer as well. But I have a verb, akuo. And the verb akuo starting off with a vowel presents a bit of a problem. I mean, this doesn't look right, akuo. So Plummer works through these and he just shows you the way these work is that these will combine, and when the augment is in there, take the vowel and lengthen it. That's your basic principle. Take the vowel and lengthen it, and you'll get to how the augment combines with that verb. Okay, lengthening, what we mean by that is if I have a short vowel and a long vowel, a short vowel like in English we'd say ah, versus long vowel o, a versus a. Okay, the way this long short vowel system works in Greek is that an alpha or an epsilon, either one of them, will lengthen to eta. And an omicron will lengthen to omega. And if you just know that, you're good to go. Okay, so a verb like akuo, instead of my getting the messy akuo, what I'm actually going to get here is akuo. That doesn't make sense because it's a present tense ending, and so I'd need to convert some other things, ekusa, and things like that. But for now, this augment would combine with the alpha, according to this chart. The alpha would turn to an eta. If it started off with an epsilon, it would turn to an eta. If it started off with an omega, like I think they gave the example aphelo, then it would turn to if it started with an omicron, it would turn to an omega. Okay, some of that I'm not stressed about you memorizing right now. I think your key for this lesson, what I'm concerned about, what I would like you to put your time, attention into, is getting this chart solid. Okay, you by the end of this lesson really want to know the imperfect endings, both active and middle passive, and how to implement them, how to put them into their verb forms down here. And I do think memory and the way memory works, or how you memorize things, learn this chart by probably brute force. Just walk around saying these charts. Nu sigma blank, min ten nu, main sa ta, methaslen ta. And then actually sit down with a blank piece of paper and try from memory to put augment, stem, connecting vowel, ending. And to do that for all the present actives, all the imperfect actives, all the imperfect middle passives. You should do it for the presents too, since that's part of what we're learning. Okay, write them out and then come back and look and see if you got it correct. Correct your mistakes. Do that a couple of 3 or 4 times across 2 days, I think you'll know it. I think you'll have it in a short order, bit of time and a bit of practice. And then as we've said a couple of different times in a couple of different ways, remember, the good thing about Greek is that you don't need to produce these forms, you need to recognize the forms. So for now, actually it's pretty simple. You don't want to depend on this. But for now, you look at the augment on the front of it, and that's already leading you towards the imperfect. Because all you know are presents and imperfects, augments on the imperfects, those are the distinctions. And if you'll practice with those imperfects, you'll get augment, stem, connecting vowel, ending to be able to break down the rest of it. I'll show you a couple of examples where the imperfect is probably exegetically significant. Some of these are really fun, really interesting to look at. So here, Matthew 3:6, the ESV is rendered, they were baptized by him in the river Jordan, confessing their sins. This is John the Baptist. On point of fact, I mean, this is a little pedantic, but it's okay. This is a passive, and they were being baptized in the Jordan River. And it's an imperfect, so it's linear. Okay, so I do like they were being baptized, which ESV has rendered the passive, they were baptized. But you can see the anta, right? That's that on that second chart, third person plural, they. And the linear kind of gives you the sense. The crowds are coming to him and baptisms are happening. Kind of an ongoing. They are being baptized. They were being baptized. Okay, some significance of the imperfect tense. This is an interesting one, and this is in Mark 5, and maybe it's pressing it a bit. This is the combination of an me verb together with a participle. And if you put some of that together, it's not a proper imperfect tense, but there's a little more complexity to how we understand these together. It's kind of an imperfect idea. Night and day he was crying out and cutting himself with stones. You're getting the read off of this that this is like an ongoing linear thing. It's in the past, but linear. This is a thing he was doing. Mark 14:56, many were bearing false witness against him. Okay, it would be one thing to put it in what's called the aorist. It's the simple past, and to say they bore false witness, like a thing happened. They bore false witness. Okay, that happened. But this is a bit different. They were bearing false witness, as in they keep coming or they keep on attempting. And if you know the story from the other Gospels, they kept on attempting and it's not working because they can't get their story together. John 3, Jesus' baptism is also this ongoing sort of thing. He was baptizing. And finally, this one's really interesting. They were attempting, the apostles are attempting to go to some places. And it just says they were attempting to go to Bithynia, but the Spirit of Jesus did not allow them. You kind of, I don't want to overplay it, but you get the sense that there's a serious, this is not a momentary, like they kind of falter that way. Oh, no, okay. There's a serious intention, like an intentionality to go, and maybe in a kind of an iterative way, possibly. They were attempting. Maybe a stronger way to say it might really just be in the storytelling sort of sense. And so I was going up here, and then I was doing this. I mean, that may be as far as it goes. But I don't mind recognizing that it's an imperfect here, and even the possibility that there is this sense of them maybe trying on more than one occasion to go. And if I put this into practical terms, I've said before, I make a little personal distinction for aspect. I might say to someone, someone asks prayer, or I know of someone who needs prayer or something like that. And I might say to them subsequently, like the issue has come and gone, and I get back in touch with them. Hey, I heard about your need. It was on my heart. I prayed for you. And that might mean, I am at least conscious of it, that I prayed for them at least once. Okay. I try, as just a matter of honesty, integrity, if I'm saying to somebody, I have been praying for you, or I was praying for you, I mean by that iterative, like multiple times. I prayed for you at least twice. I prayed for you at least twice, and it wasn't within 30 seconds of each other. I have been praying for you, or I was praying for you, is this imperfect kind of ongoing sense. I do think in some cases there is exegetical intent with that kind of thing. It happened more than once in the past. And again, you can take a look at Plummer. Plummer will give you a more extensive, he gives you 3 different instances, or 3 different, I guess, concepts that the imperfect can communicate. And in second year, we get deeper into what the imperfect can communicate. But the good news is you're already putting away another verb tense, moving forward now with the imperfect tense as well. So congratulations. When we continue on into our next lecture, we'll enter into another kind of verbs. They're called contract verbs. From there, we get into prepositions and start really building out enough pieces that you can do increasing complexity with your translations. So it's time to start putting some of this to work and actually doing some basic translations in 1 John. Some of that can be part of your upcoming homework.